Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how data source chaining works. And this is a really important concept because you can really improve the performance of your site or break the performance of your site if you are not careful. So, as you can see, we are on transactions page, and every transaction will display the date when it happened. It will display amount that was made in this transaction, and it will display a flower name. And if we take a look at our transactions, you can see that we only have date and our flower in here, no price. So we will have to somehow get the price, and we will use data source chaining for that later. For now, let's just go and create a data source for our transactions. So I'm just going over here, create a new data source, and we'll call this transactions. We don't need any parameters. We also don't need any filtering. We'll just sort transactions by first of all we need to select the transaction source, so transactions, and let's sort by the date, and we will sort descending, so we always get the most recent ones first. And let's just enable pagination, so we'll set this to, I don't know, 6 transactions per page, okay, maybe 5. And we want to output flower and the date, not the system date, that's a different thing. And we also want to attach this data source to transaction page. There we go. So let's create our data source, and let's just check what we have now. And as you can see, here are transactions. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly create a template that will output all of these transactions and include pagination. There we go. So I have my main child page template, where I'm applying a template that will render every transaction that we find, and in here I'm just outputting the date of the transaction. We currently don't have access to the price, and I'm also outputting the name of the flower. So if we take a look at our data source, you can see this is the entry and this is the date node. So I'm just outputting this thing over here, and under the flower item I'm outputting the name of our orchid. And here's, as you can see, we have also ID of that flower accessible as well as the handle, unlike with the previous regular select box field. Okay, so now we need to somehow get the price of our flower. So let's just take a quick look at the front end, what's happening. As you can see, I'm rendering the date of each transaction, the flower that this transaction was made for, and hopefully the price someday. So one way we can do this is by creating another data source. And in this data source we will call this, I don't know, flower prices, like so. And let's say that we will output every single flower, because at the moment, you know, we need to somehow match the flowers. We don't know which flower we will need. And let's output just the price, and we'll attach this to the transactions page. So let's do this now, and let's take another look at the debugger. And as you can see, we have our flower prices, and we have ID of our flower and the price of this flower. So that's exactly what we need. And I'm just going to create a template for this, so I'll be back in that. Well, actually this shouldn't take too long, so we can just say give me the value of flower prices. So this is just a shorthand to find me any node that has this name, and since there is only one at the moment, we don't have to worry about matching something different accidentally. So we will get entry whose ID, let me just move this into another line. So we want entry whose ID is equal to ID of our current. So we cannot really use, again, as you can see, we have our template which is matching the entry inside of the transaction, and we need to somehow store ID of this item. So let's just create a variable for this current entry, like so, and I'm going to name this variable current ID, like so, and we'll say select at actually want flower item ID, so flower slash item slash at ID, and we can just use a self-closing tag, and now we can just match this variable over here. So we want to get entry flower price of the flower with the ID that matches our variable CID, like so, and then we also want to get the price from this entry. There we go. So let's just quickly test this. Let's, I don't know, set this to 18, and there we go. We get the price of this entry with the 18. So now we should get our prices displayed. There we go. And as you can see, we currently only have orchid. So somebody was buying orchids like a crazy man, and it is very wasteful to output all of these flower prices, because we only need flower price for orchid, and we, for example, had 10,000 flowers for some reason in our store, and this could happen if you are doing a website for some other business. This would get quite ugly, because you would only need one value and you would have 10,000 items in here. So we need to fix this somehow, and for that we will use a concept that's called data source chaining. So let's get back to our data sources, and let's go over to our transactions. Okay, so now over here under the parameters, we can say that we want our transactions data source to aggregate all of the flower IDs, flower values, into a single variable. So we can say, we can just select this thing over here, and I will save these changes, and let's see what we have in our data source now. And as you can see, this thing over here has appeared, and under the parameters we also get a field which basically aggregates all of the flower IDs from every transaction entry into a single comma separated string. And now we can use this variable in another data source for filtering. So since we have created this in transactions, let's go over to our transaction flowers. Was it? Oh, flower prices. This is what I want. So we'll go over here, and let's just get a quick look over here again. We said that we actually want to reduce the number of these entries, because we really don't need all of these entries. We just need the price of the flower with the ID 10. And now we can say that we want to filter this by system ID, and here we can put whoops, not this, but let me go back. What did we call it? Yeah, this thing over here. So let's just paste this here, and we can save changes, and now we should only get flowers that prices for the flowers that are currently visible on our page. Sorry, I had small interruption. So where was I? Yeah, so now as you can see we only get the price for this one specific flower that is currently visible on this page. So let's try to add a transaction that's related to some other flower. Let me create a new one. I will use today's date and the flower Anna Lotus. Create entry. And if I refresh the page now, you can see we have a lotus, and if I refresh our data sources here in the debugger, you will see that we get also entry for the lotus flower. So there we go, that's how we can chain two data sources together and filter the results, so that we use our resources more effectively. And that should be all for this video. I will see you in the next video where we will be working on some JSON API for the graph.